advancement of technology, especially in the field of artificial intelligence, has transformed numerous sectors, including education. While AI offers a plethora of advantages such as personalized learning, automated grading, and content recommendation, it also poses challenges, notably in preserving academic integrity. As AI tools become increasingly sophisticated, so too does the potential for students to utilize these technologies to gain undue advantages in their academic pursuits. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the cutting edge of technology. And I'm your host, Priya Dayalani. Academic integrity is the foundation upon which educational institutions are built. It signifies a commitment to and the demonstration of honestly scholarly work. However, with the rise of AI assisted tools such as essay generators and automated problem solvers, students today are faced with unprecedented temptations to divert from this part of integrity. These AI tools, while developed with the intention of aiding research and providing quicker solutions, can be easily misused. And this misuse undermines the very purpose of education to promote understanding, critical thinking, and genuine learning. Joining us today is Manish Mohta, Managing Director of Learning Spiral, to help us understand that it's crucial to not only understand the extent and ways in which AI tools can be misused, but also to discover innovative strategies educators can adopt to foster environments that deter such behavior and encourage genuine learning. Hi Manish, how are you doing?
Thank you, Priya. It's great to be on this podcast of Analytics Insight.
Great, Manish. It's a pleasure to have you on a podcast today. And I guess we are going to touch down on a very sensitive and a crucial topic today, where we are talking about the other side of AI and unlock some of the myths that are related in terms of using AI in education and educational institutions. And how are we, going to tackle some of the challenges that come along in terms of using AI in the entire education industry. But before we get started, let's set the foundation by letting our listeners understand more about Learning Spiral. So, if you could help us understand about the company, its specialization, it would be great.
So, Priya, Learning Spiral was founded to provide digital and AI superpowers to higher education and examination boards across, India and the Southeast Asia. And to that goal, the aim was very simple that within this geography, higher education institutes and examination boards struggle to, keep up with the kind of pressures with the large student cohorts that they handle. So how do you ensure academic integrity? How do you ensure that you are able to provide, up to date and advanced curriculum, and at the same time do it at scale so that you can handle the kind of volumes and population pressure which is there on state-led or public sector-led organizations. So that's been, our observation that you have great talent in terms of students, you have great talent in terms of our professors and our administrators. But what happens is that due to good tech and AI intervention, which is lacking at a lot of our higher education establishments and our state or public sector examination boards. So as a result of that, students have suffered, and that is something that we would wanted to change. And that's what Learning Spiral's mission is, that how can we make sure that students are able to achieve and are able to get the marks that they truly deserve. And that's where our solutions and our entire efforts have been focused on, to make sure that the advanced tech as well as AI interventions are readily available to universities and state boards and public sector examination boards within the country.
Great. Thank you for that overview, Manish. And definitely, when we are talking about AI, we need to keep a balance. And with the learning spiral coming in the picture, I think it's important that how you are making sure that students are able to achieve what they truly deserve and without misusing the technologies that can help make education more pervasive, more inclusive, and likewise also help the educational institutions to improve the entire educational curriculum and how we are going to educate more and more people while using these emerging technologies like AI. Moving ahead, Manish, we would also like to know about you. You have over a decade of experience in building technology driven businesses that impact education. You are a visionary leader in the edtech space with deep expertise in exam technology, policy implementation, and digital transformation in education. So it would be great if you can tell us more about yourself. How has the journey been till date? And what triggered more of your interest in learning Spiral, and what exactly is your role today?
So, I've been fortunate enough to have graduated from Delhi College of Engineering right in the middle of a big boom, which was the dot-com boom era. And subsequently, I'm an alumni from the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. So, I've been to some of the prestigious higher education institutes, I would say. And that's been the genesis of, the businesses wherein we had wanted to impact the higher education sector in a big way. And I recall in the early days when we had met, the Secretary Education of a very large state, and he had mentioned that if you really want to impact education across the country, then you need to work with public sector. So from therein, we drew that this is a challenge that we can take up. That how we can make sure that tech interventions are available to public sector enterprises to be able to handle student cohorts at scale, especially in the examination and the assessment sector. Because if you look at it, the life of typical student or youth in our country is determined by a few milestone events, and from an education or academic timeline perspective, these events are typically examination. So you have a school and 10th exam, and then you have a 12th exam, then you have some admission exams, and then you have your semester and your graduation. And all of these events are essentially nothing but high stake examinations. So these high stake examinations fairly determine the future of today's youth in our country. And that's the kind of sanctity and seriousness which these life-changing events have. So if we would ideally want a scenario where these life-changing events are both fair, equitable, as well as they make sure that the students get the marks that they deserve, because that's going to change their lives. So frankly speaking, that was the genesis, fairly well ahead of times. In 99 2000, when internet had not even penetrated our country, three friends and we started a campus startup, and the idea was that how can we have things online. And that's like fairly well ahead of time. It took 20 years from there on for actually internet to come and penetrate into India. And then subsequently, we had to pivot our model, because even though we tied up with nearly 250 to 300 institutes at that time, but because of the lack of internet penetration, things really did not pick up. So not just, somewhere around close to 2020s is the time where we could see with Geo and everyone that internet penetration was deep, was available deep in the country. And that's where the transition of higher education institutes adopting online as well as digital technologies happened. And then, of course, the last 6 years, AI has seen a big change. And so continued our focus and made sure that, one of the biggest stumbling blocks which face education and examination administrations in our country is how to get results out on time while maintaining the academic integrity and the accuracy of evaluation. Because you routinely see that state boards or examination boards are taking like 2 months to take out the results. And if you see that that's going to happen every semester, then nearly 5 months of the year you are only evaluating and computing the results. While for those 5 months, because the way our education system is, while these exam results are not out, the learning also stops. So this was an observation that for nearly 50% of the year, our students are not learning. Our youth is deprived of learning at all. And the entire administration, the infrastructure is just idle. Teachers are there, the buildings are there, labs are there, but there is no teaching because you are waiting for results. So that's where we have been, successfully able to implement our solutions. And I'm happy to say that, some of the largest boards, whether it is in Tamil Nadu or Haryana or Rajasthan, they have been able to adopt our solutions, and that's seen a dramatic change wherein the result timelines, which used to be like 2.5 months after the papers ends, now has dramatically come down to as low as 10 to 15 days. And that's a big impact because it literally means that for 4 months I have provided 4 months of extra learning to the academic calendar, solved the entire issue with the academic calendar not having time to cover the syllabus. And that's something which can make sure that our youth are continuously at the cutting edge of learning and adoption of technology, as well as we are maintaining our standards of education and not just diluting it year after year because the pressure on the academic calendar. At the same time, with AI, we are now able to make sure that the accuracy and the sanctity of the evaluation process is maintained. So personally speaking, my goal in Learning Spiral has been more of a visionary and for the direction and showing the direction in which the organization needs to be working on to create the maximum impact in the higher education landscape. And I'm happy to say that today our organization nearly impacts more than 10 million students a year, and that's a big number. And that's something that we are proud of, that we are able to create goodwill as well as make sure that our solutions are available at scale.
Definitely. That was such an insightful overview, Manish, of your journey and what exactly is your role at the company today. And it's definitely been a very inspiring journey. And we are really glad to your role is impacting the organization, but also shaping the broader vision of the industry, and wherein you're trying to make the maximum impact in this particular industry with the use of technology. And definitely, your perspective sets a strong foundation for the rest of our conversation. With that, let's move into our next area of discussion. I think when we are talking about exams, evaluations, and the role of AI in it, I mean, initially I spoke about academic integrity. It is only as strong as the processes that protect it. Now, surveys across higher education show that a significant share of students admit to some form of academic dishonesty, which is exactly why universities and colleges and now expect students to check originality before submitting their work. Now, one credible overview of the prevalence of academic dishonesty indicates that the problem touches a large fraction of learners and courses, making preventive tools and practices essential for every student. So, as institutions seek to harness the power of AI to enhance the learning experiences, it is also critical to understand that these technologies have multifaceted roles. I mean, AI offers profound opportunities to foster fair and efficient educational practices, from detecting plagiarism to providing personalized learning paths. So, how do you think these AI tools are helping detect malpractice or other forms of academic dishonesty during online exams?
So, if you speak especially about online exams, so that's I would say, a cat and mouse game. Because, as always, if there is a rule, then there would be some people who would attempt to break the rule. That's the nature of rules. And that's the nature of, the youth and the rebellious spirited in a small cohort in that youth. So, definitely, whenever we talk about examinations, then there would be a small percentage which would try to find means and mechanisms to circumvent the rules. How does AI help in both ways? So AI is just like another digital intervention or digital tool. Now you could use it for the good. You could also use it for circumventing and finding shortcuts. So the end goal is actually determined more by the person who yields the tool rather than the tool itself. So you have, typically one would say that, imagine a world where, the teacher is relying on AI tools to generate questions and question paper. And then you have students who are probably, using some of these AI tools to generate responses against them. And then the evaluation is happening by the AI tool. So in a sense, that kind of a world is not far away. And that also leaves you to ponder as to, what's the role of the, learning and being human, wherein, the entire cycle is being done by maybe one or two LLMs, or maybe just the same LLM. For all you know, it could be the same LLM that is generating the questions, also generating the essays, and as well as doing the evaluation. So that's the world, and that's the world that we need to keep in mind when we think that, what is the way that we need to look at AI. So if you imagine that kind of a world, then you immediately understand that for us to be able to make sense of being human, then, the layer of decision making, the layer of ethics, the layer of the vision and direction, which is what makes us different. And that's what we need to, work on when we work on the learning layer. When calculators and computers came in being, it was similar. Earlier you used to do the calculations by hand or with by mental mathematics, and then that used to be the test of your abilities. But gradually those complex computations and analytics went on to calculators or went to computers, and you really didn't need to crunch the numbers. You didn't need to multiply a big string of digits, or you didn't need to add all the numbers together. That could be done in an Excel. But the skill that you needed to learn was that what's the table to be drawn? What is the analysis to be conducted? Now, when you look at that same manner in which you need to look at the AI tools, so AI tools can do what they are directed to do. But what is the direction that you are ready to give them? How are you able to prod them to come to a conclusion which is fairly distinct and more reflective of your thought process? So I think that's where the distinction of being human and the distinction of testing the true learning will come up. So I think there's a lot to learn for educators as well as students as to how to use these tools to get work done, but in a manner that you want it to happen. It's not that whatever you have, the LLM churns, you use it as it is without checking, because you know that they might be hallucinating, there are ethical biases. So your ability to, check out the facts, your ability to understand the nuances and control the technology to be able to generate content or answers which are reflective of your views and your logical thinking. I think that's the test of intelligence now in a future world, rather than just the factual or the task of writing a sentence. So I think the skill sets are coming to a more basic level, wherein logical thinking, analytical thinking, creative mindset are going to be definitely more enhanced and more nuanced, and that's going to make the differentiation between someone who is better than the others. So I think that's what the learning system has to modify their mechanisms towards, and that's the goal where teachers and students need to move forward with. There is no point in fighting AI, because that's something which both sides of the table are going to be end up using one way or the other.
Definitely, Manish. And I think that brings me to something closely connected. I mean, as we integrate these systems, the expectations from both educators and students are changing rapidly. And of course, I mean, like you said, there are a lot of things that we need to unpack and learn, both educators and students, as to how they can rethink basically about academic integrity in this digital first world. And of course, overall, I think it's important that we help institutions build more transparent and trustworthy learning environment and assessment environments. And moving forward, I think that will be one of the most important agenda or aspects that they need to focus on. Let's move a little deeper into this conversation, Manish. When we talk about education, I think it has always been an uneven playing field, specifically in India, I would say. Under resourced school systems have had to make do with limited classroom supplies or older materials, while their well heeled counterparts often benefited from the latest resources. Now, as schools are becoming increasingly digital, these inequities are at risk of widening. Then we have AI being one of the latest innovation to enter the classroom. Technologists or educators, and even some of the leaders who agree that AI is already transforming how we teach and learn. But I feel that this technology is at a crossroads. I think it can widen the digital gap in education and inequities in the workforce, or eitherwise it can also help in playing or leveling up the playing field. So I think the digital divide continues to challenge equitable access to education. How do you think that technology can bridge this gap, especially when it comes to conducting fair and inclusive assessments?
So my experience, Priya, has been that, with the advent of the mobiles and the mobile penetration in, countries like ours, the digital divide has actually shrunk. The newer generations are also far more friendly and accustomed to mobiles as compared to a generation which had seen the invention of mobile. So as a result of that, I think it just comes naturally to them, the younger generation, as maybe to our generation or to a generation before us who really had to learn how to use the mobile. The newer kids don't really need to learn. I think they get to it very fast. And so, from that extent, I think in general, the digital divide is, getting narrower rather than getting broader. A. B. When you talk about education, definitely, if you look at a large geography like our country, trying to build schools which are accessible to people and children is a more difficult task than to provide internet. So providing internet and providing mobile networks and internet through mobile, I think is a more doable task in our country as compared to providing a school building with a physical teacher there. So, given that you have to choose between providing access to physical infrastructure based education versus digital infrastructure based education, so I think the digital infrastructure based education path to providing accessibility is definitely more feasible. And I think there are far more pockets in our country which are covered by the mobile and the internet rather than covered, within a walking distance of a school. So from that perspective, I think, we talk about the digital divide, but in my opinion, the digital divide is little overrated when it comes. And when it comes to assessment and exams, I have found that in any case, when students have to go for a serious exam, and that exam could be taken on, say, a mobile or a laptop, then getting access to a mobile for those 1 hours or 2 hours is something which is readily available for students. Because remember, we live in a society where we are, spending close, even the poorer class are spending half their money and savings on tuitions or for on making sure that their children get a better education. So a lot of the money is going there, and there is a lot of concern of parents to make sure that facilities or things are made available, whether it is books or something for their child to be able to learn. So getting access for 2 hours or 2.5 hours for giving your exam on a mobile device is something which is now very, very feasible. And in any case, again, because a lot of the government services and a lot of the payment infrastructure has moved on to mobile. So access to one mobile in a family is very much present. So from an examination and assessment perspective, these days we hardly come across a place wherein the student complains that I don't have a device, or I won't be able to get a device. Yes, if you try to restrict that, access needs to be from a computer or a laptop, that time you might get stuck. But if your assessment is fairly able to get attempted on a mobile device, then I don't think there is a digital divide anymore in our country.
Definitely, Manish. And I think bridging this digital divide, isn't about the infrastructure. It's more about creating systems that are fair, inclusive, and designed keeping in mind every learner. And I think what you said is right, that we really need the right digital tools so that we can create a more a level playing field where we can use these tools to enhance and promote adaptive learning platforms or AI-driven analytics that can identify where truly students need that support. This brings us to another important angle. You also mentioned in earlier of your responses, Manish, that with AI coming into the picture, we focusing more on the skills. I think for over a century, the kind of work or jobs that we have been doing is kind of dominating the structure for work. And it is defining how work is done, by whom, how it is managed and led, and how workers are supported by every HR practice. So we have been confining our work to standardized tasks that we need to do in a particular job, and then taking all of the decisions around that organizational hierarchy. So I think now, today, I think post COVID, the trend has been that organizations are moving toward a whole new operating model for work, and that and are keen in hiring workforce that places skills more important rather than jobs at the center. So skill-based assessments are gaining importance in today's job market. How do you think that educational institutions can design those evaluations that go beyond grades and measure their real world competencies?
So Priya, you're absolutely right. I think we have become more result oriented, and we have become more aware that just having a theoretical knowledge is not leading to the kind of productivity and the kind of impact that we want. Because as a stand-up comedian once said that we have three types of problems. The first problem is we have students who are unemployed. Then you have a problem where you don't have people for the work that you have, and the third type of problem is that the people that you hire for the work, they don't seem to be performing at all. So these are the three types of problems which we are facing all at the same time. So what is missing here? I mean, why are we facing all the three problems at the same time? Why are companies crying that they don't find the right people, are crying that they don't have jobs, and the people who are employed, the employer is crying that the people who are working for him don't seem to know how to do the job well. So I think it's a question of killing here. That's the missing link that we are, missing in the chain, as a result of which the three requirements are not connecting to each other. So if the skill sets are something that we would focus on, then we would be looking at more goal oriented, result oriented kind of education or learning. So it would be more that, how can he make, complete his accounts? How can he do the reconciliation properly? How can he use the AI tool to write letters and complete the correspondence, rather than the theoretical knowledge of how a letter is written and those, and stop at that. So definitely the basis and foundation needs to be provided, which our typical education was providing, but the skills layer needs to go hand in hand along with that fundamental, so that they are fit for the jobs. And I think our NEP is, with their intervention of industry led courses and industry led curriculum, has taken the right step. And though a lot of higher education institutes are still struggling to accept the fact that they might be teachers, but they need to add this layer of skilling which industry people can provide. And I think that will definitely help in bridging this gap across these three sets of problems. And at our end, in our organization, also we have come up with cloud and AI based skilling courses for college students as well as even the 11th and 12th class students, so that they can be provided hands-on skills to allow them to work on cloud and AI, which can be very, very useful in case they want to pursue it as a career, because these are skills which otherwise companies would be training them on, whether it is AWS or AI or in the cloud, so that they can start actually doing real work. So I think that's a layer on which every educational institute or schools need to start working on to make sure that our youth is not just educated but also skilled.
Definitely, Manish. And I think overall AI in educational settings represents a significant step in maintaining academic integrity, also enhancing student learning experiences. While AI provides powerful tools for detecting academic fraud and personalizing education, it also raises some important ethical and legal considerations that require careful management. I think, nevertheless, educational authorities need to carefully address these obstacles and align AI deployments with both ethical guidelines and legal requirements. And as we continue to explore the capabilities of AI, all stakeholders must collaborate in developing those frameworks and pathway that maximize benefits while minimizing the risks. Thank you so much, Manish, for taking out the time and effort to be on a podcast today and helping us understand that the progress of AI in education hinges on balancing innovative practices with responsible actions to ensure equitable benefits from technological progress for students and educators alike. Nevertheless, educators need to take certain steps to embrace AI as a powerful ally responsibly and to nurture and inspire students to leverage these tools ethically. Thank you so much, Manish, for sharing some interesting and insightful aspects from your end. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you, Priya. Likewise, it's always a pleasure to be able to share thoughts and views with people in general.
Thank you so much, Manish. This is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's episode about the evolving role of AI in academic integrity and the overall educational system. Stay tuned for upcoming podcast. Meanwhile, you can view all our previous podcasts on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.